Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Financial Juneteenth, and I am the guy who has a cold who sounds just like somebody shoved two bricks in his nostrils. So forgive me if I sound a little bit nasal, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to do all the talking. The person that's going to do most of the talking today is Miss Rachel Bradshaw. She's out of New York. She's the creator of a new company called Little Harriet Productions. She just made a film called On My Own, and she's going to tell you all about that in a second. I want to first ask Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm great this Sunday. How are you?
I am doing very well. I'm a little bit sick. I'm trying to get better, but the show goes on, and we're going to do our
Yes.
conversation because I felt like it was important for us to talk and for people to hear from you. So so first of all, let's start from the beginning. You have a background in news and media, is that correct? Tell me
I
about
do.
that.
I have a background in news. I've worked for about 10 years in news for various news corporations here in New York. I was a part of the Bill Moyers Journal staff for a long time. Then from there, currently, I also do work also for Time Warner Cable New York One News. So I have a news background there. I did some interning for CNN and Transit News Magazine, which is New York City Transit. The show is not on anymore, but they had their own news magazine show. So, I come from a background in news, and now I've decided to delve more into film so that I can control kind of the messaging as far as what I think we should discuss as far as social issues in the Black community. So that kind of spawned me deciding to go ahead and start my own production company.
Oh, okay. So what when you say the messages, you can control the messages up. What sorts of messages do you think are important to share in film?
Well, I think because of the history that blacks have in this country, as far as how we are portrayed, there's been the mammy, there's been the sapphire, there's been the tragic mulatto, all of these images in film, and then now what you see on television. A lot of times in news, you'll see it's always some sort of criminal activity, or if you watch a lot of these reality shows, you see these hypersexual video vixens, and you see the baby mamas, or if you're watching maybe like a Being Mary Jane, which I like the show, but you have the successful singer, bitter black woman. You have all these different images that are conveyed out there about us. I thought that since we're not a monolithic people and we want to make sure that the representation of us is true out there, that I would decide to also chip in to display other things that we should be discussing, because there's a lot of social issues in the Black community that we have to discuss so we can start a real national dialogue on them. So I just wanted to be a part of that movement because there are a lot of great filmmakers out there doing it. I just wanted to be a part of the movement also.
Hmm, interesting. So tell me about On My Own. What's the theme behind this project?
Okay, well, On My Own, it's an eye-opening documentary that shatters the negative stigma of Black single motherhood and what it really is, and why there's such a uh, single motherhood epidemic in the African American community. But what it also does is it's an open dialogue, a well balanced dialogue to discuss what is really going on with the Black community as far as the Black family, and how do we move on to repair it? Because basically, what the film's premise is if we don't get the family structure together, we can't move forward as a community, because a weak family structure equals a weak community, because the family is the most basic social unit of a community and society. So that has to be in order. And the Black family in America has such an unstable history that I do think that it's time now to really tackle this, because 7 out of 10 Black children live in a home without a father. And that's serious. And it's time for us to really, as a people, to address this.
It's funny that you refer to this as an epidemic. It's interesting because, I remember asking one of the young ladies that I mentor. I said, how many friends do you have who have a father in the house? And she thought about it for a second. She said none. And I asked her, and another young lady that I mentor, I asked her. I said, or actually, she came to me and she said, do you know anybody who's married? She said, I don't know anybody who's
Wow.
married. And I thought that was so unbelievable. And neither one of these kids, they were both about 14, 15 at the time, neither one of them had a political agenda for asking the question. They didn't have some sort of preconceived awkward bias that would lead them to think anything about what they're seeing around them. They didn't understand what they were seeing. They didn't, they just asked me about it, and I just thought about how so many things have changed for us. Now, I want to ask you about this. I read in the Economist magazine. The Economist magazine, they wrote that that for every 1% increase in the incarceration rate, there's a 2% decline in the percentage of black women who get married. Do you have any thoughts about that at all, based on the work you do?
It was actually addressed in the film because the film has three parts, and when the film because the film has a birth part, it has a departure, and it has a salvation part, which explores practical solutions. And in that segment, we discuss how many fathers are not in the home because they're incarcerated and what that does, especially in the black family, as far as like the mass incarceration of black males. Michelle Alexander really goes into that in her book, The New Jim Crow. It has really impacted the black family and marriage rates, black marriage rates. I think that's something that needs to be addressed as far as how many African American men are going to jail for petty crimes, especially drug related nonviolent crimes. That's number one. And I think number two, American society says that you're rehabilitated once you do your time, but we know once you come out, it's very hard for you to get a job. And there's one gentleman that is featured in a documentary that he talks about how he did 20 years in jail, and when he came out, he had all these demands put on him to be the head of the household, to be the father, but it's hard for him to find work because once they ask you on that job application, have you ever been committed of a felony? If you check that box, they're not calling you. So it's very hard for black men to really successfully re-enter society and re-enter their families. So that's a major issue in itself. I think America has to look at its policies as far as how it deals with ex-felons that come out into society. If they're saying that, okay, you're rehabilitated and you did your time and now you deserve a second chance, our society hasn't really shown that to be true. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I think we need to address as black women that might be dealing with some men that come out of jail, how do we change the outlook on what we expect from them once they're re-entering the family? It's a very complex issue in itself, but we do address that in the film because I believe 725,000 prisoners are released from jail every year, and most of them are African American males, and they come back into the home, and it's tough for them to kind of go into their families and just try to figure out where is their footing. How are they going to be able to participate in family life? Because finances play a big role in family because there's children to take care of, there's bills to be paid. And that's tough because a man's role is defined by being able to provide for the family. So it's a very touchy subject, very touchy subject.
Wow, it's extremely touchy. It's really tragically touchy because you think about the criminal justice system. Just it's so oppressive on every level. Even it really starts even with policies like stop and frisk, because that increases the likelihood that you're even going to have an interaction with the cops. And I say that anybody, if all of us were forced to interact with police, on a regular basis, there's a good chance we'd get arrested for something at some point, right? The cop messes with you, you talk back, or or you do something that you're not, I don't know, he grabs you and you pull your arm away, or
Yeah.
they're charging you with assaulting a police officer and all this other stuff. And so, so then you're in the courtroom, and we know we're more likely to be convicted of even of the same crimes. We get longer sentences, like you mentioned, these long, long sentences for very petty crimes. I mean, I literally personally know a guy who got 40 years for possession of 1 gram of crack cocaine back in 1992, right? And they're not thinking about what's happening to the family while this guy's gone. And then you have the nightmare of just being in prison itself. Prison is a breeding ground for mental illness. You're constantly being faced with someone that might kill you. When I talked to my friend who got the 40 years in prison for 1 gram of crack, he got out after 20 years because his name was Daryl Pageant. He studied the law the whole time. The whole time he was just in his legal books, and he eventually filed for his own release when Obama changed the disparity from 100 to 1 to 18 to 1, which is still unfair, but it's not as bad as it was, but it's
Yeah.
still not fair. So anyway, he came home, and I asked him, I said, so what was that like? How did you feel? And he said it was horrible because every day you know that someone might try to kill you. And that's a hugely stressful environment to be in. Not to mention so many individuals who get raped while they're in prison. This doesn't just affect them psychologically. I mean, think about this. I mean, we talk about people in our society and how bad rape is and sexual assault is such a big issue, big issue, big issue. The president's talking about it, but nobody talks about all the sexual assault victims that are incarcerated. And so then, and then on top of that, the funny thing is that if you are assaulted in prison, it's not like society where you can have your attacker convicted and all this other stuff and stay away from him. You're going to see your assaulter every day, when you go to breakfast, right? And no one cares. So
It's a joke. It's a joke. Like, don't drop the soap and stuff like that. It becomes a joke.
right, and rape is not a joke, right? Rape is not supposed to be funny, right? So just going down the list, and then this comes back to affect the family because, well, when these men come home, who are they having sex with? They're having sex with black women, So that's, excuse me, part of the reason that black women, get infected with
Yeah.
diseases is because, I mean, things happen in prison and men come out and whatever. So, I think even if you throw out just what you had talked about, which I think is very important, the marginal, the long term effects, like you can't get a job, you can't go to school, you can't get public housing, all these other things that happen because you've been convicted of a felony, it's already a tragic and traumatic experience, even up to that point. So then you're piling trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma on top of disenfranchisement. And who the hell expects, excuse my French, who expects anybody to be able to recover from that? So okay. So anyway, I thank you for letting me ramble, and I really shouldn't have been rambling because I have a stopped up nose, and it just sounds really stupid when a person with a stuffy nose starts rambling.
No,
So
but you're right because in the documentary, the gentleman says that there needs to be a therapeutic approach to black men who come out of jail and trying to re-enter their families. Because I remember he mentioned something in the documentary I'll never forget. He said, when you're in prison, you die inside. And I remember I was like, wow, like that was just so profound when I was at that event. He said, you have to die inside. So that's another aspect to what is making the black family even crumble more in American society. So it's not
wow.
the only issue. There's other issues also, but that's a major factor.
Well, I love it. I love the fact that you are talking about this because I think this is very important to discuss. And you and I are going to talk again in the future because I want to keep talking. I don't want it to just be a one-time thing. So let me ask you this: since your film has been released, what's been the feedback? How are things going? What's it like, kind of being an independent entrepreneur, kind of doing your thing and stuff like that? Because you used to be in corporate, and I don't know if you still dabble in it or not, but you're kind of making that transition to becoming this mega star that you're definitely that you already are, that you're going to become more of. What's that been like for you so far?
Well, I am still in corporate, and I want to make it clear that in the African American community, I say I have this discussion a lot. Our parents usually don't pass down wealth to us, inheritance. So sometimes we want to start these businesses, but there isn't capital to start it. I think that was kind of sort of what I don't want to say angered some people with the recent Dame Dash interview, but a lot of people felt like, okay, well, where do I get the money from? Does it come out of thin air? So I kind of feel like if you are in corporate America, you can still have entrepreneurial dreams, and you can use some of the income that you get working in corporate America to fund if you have some sort of business endeavor that you want to go ahead and do. Now, as far as my film, a lot of it was self-financed because there are a lot of individuals going for the same film grants that you're going for. Crowdfunding is effective. If you have, the thing with crowdfunding is if you have the audience that will support you, it's great. But if you don't have the audience of 100, 1,000 followers who are going to donate and they're part of your social media fan base, that becomes a little bit of an issue. But for me, I just continue to self-finance where I can. I did crowdfunding. I did all these different things. I went to certain people that I know would invest in it in order to be able to get this documentary done. But I did also, what was very important and what people have to realize is budgeting is very important. And you have to know how to stick to your budgeting. That's why I always tell people you have to know your math and you have to know your accounting. That was actually very important for me to make sure that I could complete this film and be able to run the company and take care of all the expenses that came along with trying to run this company. Because it's not just the creative. It's also you have to incorporate your company. There's all these other administrative things that you have to do. But it's been a bit of a struggle because as far as financing, it prolonged the completion of the film because it was actually supposed to be out 2 years ago, and I just actually completed it in 2014. But the important thing is when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, is just to stay the course. Just to stay the course. It's very important to have a business plan. I have a business plan, a written business plan. That's very important. And just keep going for it. I just kept going for it. And, I'm still building the company. Trying to, improve on my client base. But it's one day at a time.
How long is your film?
My film is 58 minutes. Well, 57 to 34 frames, so 58 minutes to round it up.
Okay, and approximately, and I'm not trying to pry too much, but I'm curious. Approximately, how much did it cost you to make the film?
Okay. Probably I would say it's a low budget film, so under 10,000.
Okay,
Under 10,000.
okay,
And that in itself had to do with just a lot of the colleagues that I've acquired over the years being in television. A lot of Because the subject matter is so important, especially when you're dealing with your Black colleagues, they understand the bigger picture, which is this is a subject that we need to tackle now, and we need to make it a national discourse. And I would have some of my colleagues say, "I'm going to go ahead and just do the graphics now. We'll take care of payment later." But I'm not trying to advocate thinking that you can get a handout because we all have bills to pay. But that's just kind of what allowed me to go ahead and proceed with the film because there's so many different costs. You have to pay for music licensing, who's providing the music, who's doing the graphics, who's shooting, who's going to edit, who's going to do your sound engineering. So there's so many different aspects to it. But I was able to keep the cost under 10,000 because digital cameras are not that expensive now, and with documentary, it's more about the subject matter, the story. So that's the good thing about documentary. It's not a narrative.
interesting. So, just so people will know, so when you got this money to make the film, you had other investors in the film too, or was it mostly from your job, or what would you say?
It was mostly for my work income, and in addition to that, I did do an Indiegogo crowdfunding, which did help a lot. The crowdfunding did help because once the film was completed, the production, I ran out of money when it was time to do the post production, and I decided to do an Indiegogo crowdfunding, and that paid for the post. That paid for all of the editing and the sound editing. So that really helped a lot because when you're doing a production, the majority of the money is going to go to post because that's where you really tell a story and that's where you really visually make it look good. So.
Wow, I love it. 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 I think it's great, and I think those questions are important because it sounds to me like you got some of your funding from you. You invested in yourself, and I always tell people don't expect other people to invest in you if you're not willing to invest in yourself, because your lack of willingness to invest in yourself means you don't have faith in what you're investing in. So if you don't have faith in what you're investing in, and you know yourself better than I do, why should I put my money up when you're not willing to put your money up? So it sounds like you invested in yourself with your corporate job. You went out and got some other investors to be a part of the film, either investing financially or investing in terms of sweat equity, just giving their time and maybe you'll pay them later, things like that, which is really a form of financing, right? If I give you $500 worth of work and you can pay me in a year, that's no different from me loaning you $500, right? So a
Correct.
lot of us can't get bank loans, but sometimes we can get friend loans. We get loans from other people who believe in what we're doing, right? And then you mentioned crowdfunding as a way to get your money, and it almost it's funny. It reminds me of this other amazing black woman that I know who lives in Botswana, who's similar to yourself, just hardworking, very professional, very intelligent, and she showed me the house that she'd built, which is a very nice house in Botswana. And I said, well, how long did it take you to get everything done? And she said, oh, it took me about 3 years because I would take money from my check and I would buy this. One day I'm buying the paint, the next day I'm buying the bricks, or whatever. And she just sort of did it piece by piece and got it done. So sometimes it takes time, right? Oh, I love it. So okay. So the last thing I want to ask you is this. You said your film has distribution, educational distribution. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And how can people support your film? What can they do?
Okay, well, for institutions that want to purchase the film, they have to go through Alexander Street Press, Filmmakers Library. They're big time. If you go to my website, www.littleharriet Productions.com. The link is there if you're an institution and you're interested in purchasing the film. You can go through them. Now, as far as like if it's a regular individual that wants to purchase the film can be purchased for $20. There's actually also on the website itself, there's a donate button that's different from the link for institutions. You go there, you click on the button. What you can do is you can purchase the film that way and just send me an email via the website or littleharrietproductions@gmail.com and just provide your shipping information and the DVD will be out to you in a jiffy. But as far as on Twitter, you can follow me at LHP3333. My personal Twitter is at Rachel Brad 33. And there is a Little Harriet Productions Facebook page. So if you just search for Little Harriet Productions, you'll see the Facebook page.
All right, all right. Well, I love it. We all want our daughters to be little Harriets, and so I appreciate the fact that you made this extraordinary film. I'm gonna check it out, and I'm glad I got a chance to speak with you. Thank you so much.
And can I just say one other thing, Dr.
Sure,
Boyce?
absolutely.
The film is really to start, On My Own is really to start a national dialogue as far as how African Americans view family life, how important mothers and fathers are in the home, because it's not just about the two adult individuals. It's about psychologically, how does having only one parent in the household affect children? And we know that it does. And we also know the statistics that children that come from single parent homes, 90% of them female headed, we know that they're most likely commit crimes or have behavioral issues and suffer from psychological issues, all of these other different social issues that come about, especially for young boys, because we know for young boys, they need men in their lives to show them actually how to be productive citizens in society. So, I just want to keep that in mind as far as that. That's what the documentary is really about. And it's about making wise dating choices, being responsible sexually, because sometimes you just kind of think you're out there having fun and children come out of these circumstances. And then it's an unstable situation because it's not an intact relationship or family. So it's about making wise dating choices. It's about really valuing marriage and the institution of what it is, and just always being cognizant of how, as adults, psychologically, our children are affected by our actions and the things that we do that affect them.
Mm. Wow. Well, you're gonna get some pushback on that. I agree with you 100%.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
it's
no,
actually it's been pretty on YouTube. It's been pretty. It's been a really great response. I've had men from prison email me and say, thank you for this film. I'm in prison. I didn't do what I had to do. Now my children are growing up without me, and I just thank you for really discussing this. So it's been more of it's time. This is time.
yeah, I think I'm in complete agreement with. I mean, that's one of the things that we constantly push is what I call the new paradigm, and that focuses on wealth, education, family, and community. And I don't think we can go through our lives pretending that kids are going to be okay without a father in the house. But you've got people that are fighting on the gay rights agenda and the feminist agenda who feel that the father is not necessary. I remember I had a very spirited debate with another scholar who said, "Why do you need a father in the house? What do you consider? Why would you consider a family not to be a family just because the father's not there?" I said, "Well, you know what? I think that if the mother wasn't there, it would be absolutely devastating for the child. So why do we not feel the same way about the father?" I'm in agreement with you. I just say you get pushback just because there are so many people who are pushing in the opposite direction, who don't want the family to rebuild the traditional form, who think that everything's okay and that you're borderline slut shaming when you
Yeah.
ask people. You've heard that term, which I think is weird to me. But you're borderline slut shaming when you tell women to be responsible with their sexual choices. But I raise my daughters and I tell them, like, the things you do, the choices you make will affect you, and you have to live your life in a proactive fashion as opposed to a reactive fashion. Reactive means you're reacting to every little thing around you. You're constantly engaging in instant gratification. Proactive means you're planning ahead. You're thinking about what you want your future to look like, and you're positioning your life such that you'll have that future that you want. Because I think it's so unfortunate when you see people whose lives almost look like they happened by accident. Like
Yeah.
like I'm 35 and I got three kids with two daddies, and my finances are a mess. I hate my career. I hate my life. How did I get here? If you don't know how you got there, then you need to sit quietly in a silent space for a very long time and replay every reel in your life and figure out the trail of decisions that led to the life that you are living right now. Period. So I'm a fan. I love what you're saying. I just say it's funny because I know that I get that pushback all the time. I get those people that think I'm being preachy or whatever, and I'm gonna keep on preaching it. But at the same time,
Gotta
though,
keep
you
going.
got a whole lot of people that are just on some old other shit. Excuse my French, and I think that you have the right idea. So I
And we
support it.
and we all know that you can acquire wealth quicker in a marriage than you can by yourself.
Yeah.
And these are just the little things that I just think, because the black family has just been going down for so long in this country, that we just don't understand. We just don't understand these lessons. That's just like some black women who don't understand the importance of marriage. And I'm like, do you understand what the institution of marriage is? If that man passes away tomorrow, you have no claim to any of his wealth, whether it's his 401k, his social security, whatever it may be. You have no claim to it if you were not married to him. And it's just like, it's these little just lessons that some of us don't have an idea about, that we really need to get back to how important marriage is. I'm on a campaign. I'm on it.
All right. Well, I want the campaign to continue, and I'd love to talk to you again in the future. I hope that's okay with you.
Oh no, well, great. You just let me know when, and I know I'm all for the discussion.
All right, awesome, awesome. Well, everybody, this is Miss Rachel Bradshaw. She is the CEO and the head honcho at Little Harriet Productions. Her film is called On My Own, which you should go support when you can. And the website that you can support the film is littleharrietproductions.com. So find her on Facebook, find her on Twitter, find her on the internet, and just back her up because she's trying to do some stuff that's going to rebuild our families, and I respect it. So thank you very much, Miss Bradshaw. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Financial Juneteenth. And forgive my stuffy nose. I'm going to go lay down now. But until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.